Have you ever noticed people who seem to drift through life almost unseen? They're not loud. They don't demand attention. They don't interrupt or take up space. Instead, they make themselves smaller. They're always careful, always alert to everyone else's presence, as if existing too loudly might inconvenience someone. They observe rather than participate. And if you look closely, you'll notice hesitation in their voice, the softness in their eyes, the quiet belief that what they have to say won't matter anyway. More often than not, these adults were once emotionally neglected children. Their loneliness didn't begin recently. It didn't start in adulthood. It began many years ago, inside the very place that should have felt safe. When people hear the word neglect, they often imagine something extreme. A child without food, without shelter, without basic care. But emotional neglect is much quieter. It leaves no visible scars. Instead, it settles deep inside. And because it's so subtle, many who grow up with it never realize what was missing. They only sense that something feels incomplete. While other children were free to laugh, cry, and express themselves openly, they learned to hold everything in. They learned that their feelings were inconvenient, excessive, or insignificant. So they adapted. Their survival tool became silence. Psychological research shows how deeply damaging this silence can be. Experts like Dr. Jonas Webb explained that children don't need perfect parents. They don't need constant validation. What they need is to feel noticed, comforted, and emotionally understood most of the time. When that doesn't happen, when parents are distracted, overwhelmed, or emotionally absent, a child begins to feel invisible. And carrying invisibility into adulthood becomes an unbearable weight. What makes emotional neglect especially painful is that it's defined by absence, not action. There's no single traumatic moment to point to. Instead, it's made up of countless small moments. When a child feels afraid and no one reassures them, when they cry and no one asks why, when they're excited and no one shares their joy. Slowly, they stop reaching out. Slowly, they learn that their inner world is unwelcome, and that lesson often follows them into adulthood. Later in life, this shows up in subtle but powerful ways. The emotionally neglected child often becomes an adult who feels disconnected even in relationships. They may appear capable, independent, even strong, but beneath the surface is a persistent question. Do I really matter to anyone? Because they were never taught to trust their emotions, they struggle to understand themselves, they doubt their instincts, they ignore their needs, they chase success, hoping it will fill the emptiness, but it never does. Their loneliness isn't just about being alone. It's about being unseen. Studies show that long-term loneliness can be as harmful to health as smoking heavily. It increases the risk of depression, anxiety, and serious physical illness. And when researchers look at where this loneliness begins, they often find the same origin. A child who learned that their feelings didn't count. It's important to say this clearly. Most parents who emotionally neglect their children are not intentionally cruel. Many were neglected themselves. They provide food, shelter, and education. They believe they are doing their best, but love without emotional awareness can still cause harm. A parent who says, "You're fine, stop crying," may believe they are teaching strength, but the child learns to distrust their pain. A parent who dismisses excitement as not a big deal may think they keep in balance, but the child hears that their joy is too much. Children are incredibly adaptive. To survive, they develop masks. Some become perfectionists, always achieving, always trying to earn approval. Some fade into the background, staying quiet, avoiding attention. Others act out, not because they want trouble, but because even negative attention feels better than being ignored. Different behaviors, same longing to be seen. Those masks don't disappear in adulthood. The perfectionist burns out, still feeling unworthy. The invisible one avoids conflict, vulnerability, and opportunity. The rebel pushes people away before they can leave. All of it is rooted in the same early fear of abandonment. One of the greatest tragedies of emotional neglect is how it shapes self-belief. Because nothing obvious happened, children assumed the problem must be them. Instead of realizing their needs weren't met, they conclude they shouldn't have needs at all. This belief can last a lifetime, leading to low self-esteem, emotional confusion, and a persistent sense of emptiness, not sadness. Not anger, but a quiet absence, like a house with no furniture. But here's the truth that changes everything. Healing is possible. It begins by naming what happened, realizing that you are not broken, that you are not weak, that the emptiness you feel is not a flaw, it's a natural response to what was missing. This realization alone can be deeply freeing because it shifts the blame from who you are to what you experienced. The brain is capable of change throughout life. Childhood neglect does not sentence you to lifelong loneliness. When you begin to acknowledge your feelings, practice self-compassion, and build relationships that are emotionally safe, you are literally teaching your nervous system a new language. Slowly, the empty rooms inside begin to fill. This process isn't easy. After years of emotional suppression, feeling again can be overwhelming. Many people experience sudden waves of emotions without explanation, anger without context, joy that feels fragile. This isn't weakness, it's the nervous system waking up after years of silence. Loneliness born from emotional neglect is not permanent. It is a wound, and wounds heal with attention, care, and time. Healing requires the opposite of neglect: being seen, being heard, being understood. Sometimes this happens through therapy, sometimes through safe relationships. Sometimes it begins with a single sentence whispered to yourself, "My feelings matter." And here's the paradox of your sensitivity. The very thing that once made you feel invisible can become your greatest strength, because you know what it feels like to be ignored. You learn how to truly see others. Because, the pain of dismissal, your compassion runs deep. Many of the most empathetic and intuitive people were once emotionally neglected children. From that loneliness, something meaningful can still grow. Healing means shifting from self-blame to self-understanding. Instead of asking, "What's wrong with me?" you begin asking, "What happened to me?" That single question replaces shame with compassion, and compassion is where growth begins. Another key step is emotional literacy, learning to identify and express feelings that were once silenced. Practices like journaling help rebuild this connection. Asking yourself, "What am I feeling right now?" gives your inner child a voice. Over time, feelings stop being frightening. They become guides. Safe relationships also matter. Trust may feel unfamiliar. Vulnerability may feel risky. But even one emotionally secure connection can begin to repair the damage. Each time someone responds with care instead of dismissal, your body learns a new truth: I matter. When safe people are hard to find, another powerful form of healing becomes essential: learning to parent yourself, comforting yourself when you're sad, allowing joy when you feel it, offering gentleness instead of criticism. These small acts rebuild what was missing. Healing isn't linear. Some days you'll feel progress. Other days, old patterns return. That's normal. What matters is continuing. Each time you choose awareness over numbness, connection over withdrawal, compassion over judgment, you reshape your inner world. Loneliness was never your destiny. It was a signal, reminder that you were meant to be known. And when you stop being a stranger to yourself, genuine connection with others becomes possible. The lonely life of emotionally neglected children is real. It is heavy. But it is not the end of the story. You are not doomed to remain unseen. You are capable of building a life where your emotions are honored, your voice is valued, and your presence is felt. And when you heal, you don't just change your own life, you quietly help change the world. Because every time someone chooses presence over neglect, compassion over dismissal, connection over silence, the cycle begins to break. Not through perfection, not by erasing the past, but through the courageous act of choosing to fully live here and now. Thank you for watching. If this video resonated with you, please consider subscribing for more content on healing and self-discovery. Take care.